said,
More abundant, more love, more joy, everything.
It's inspired young people.
Inspiration comes from within you. When you clear out the garbage that's in your mind, you then create space for something better, more beautiful to come in.
Let's have life and have it more abundantly.
I say yes.
It's like taking a workshop. I get to be in my pajamas.
We have a very active imagination, which is why it's important to learn how to harness it and then point it in the direction you want to go.
I listen to your show every day.
It's time now for Living Your Inspired Life with Susan Burrell. Susan is no-nonsense, inspirational, motivational, and fun.
This is positive talk radio.
Practical wisdom for everyday life.
It's a gift you give yourself.
Now, here's Susan.
And welcome to Living Your Inspired Life. You're listening to News Talk 1590 KVTA. And I encourage you to go to the livingyourinspiredlife.org website where you can tune in, tune up, and develop your power perspective. We've got awesome archive shows there that you can listen to anytime, so you don't have to be tuned into the radio or plugged into the radio or, sitting in your car waiting for your latte, whatever it is. Just go to livingyourinspiredlife.org. And we're currently completing, as of mañana, tomorrow, we are currently completing our Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign that we've been running for several weeks in order to keep Positive Talk Radio, our show, Living Your Inspired Life, on the air locally, but also to expand it so that we can begin to reach people that don't live in the Ventura County area. So go to livingyourinspiredlife.org. I invite you to check out what we do. And if you feel led to, please contribute to the Indiegogo campaign before we close at midnight Monday night. I thank you so much in advance for all that you are doing to support Living Your Inspired Life to stay on the air. So with that said, I am just so excited to have this really wonderful dance of a conversation with this man who's written a few books. He's a mentor, a motivational speaker. He has all the brass tacks just written down. So I want to welcome Dennis Merritt Jones.
Hey there.
Hey there. Ho there. Hi there. So, Dennis, you've written several books, but the most recent one is called Your in parentheses, Defining Moments. And I want to speak about that because I think we're in the throes of a redefining moment right now in our country as we're coming up on the national holiday, 4th of July.
Mm-hmm. Well, the subtitle of the book is equally important, which is, becoming who you were born to be. But you're right. The truth is, Susan, that every moment that lies before us has the potential to be a redefining moment, because in every given moment creates an experience for us that gives us an opportunity to take a deep introspective look and discover that part of ourselves that maybe we've forgotten was there or didn't even know that was there, that we can live up to a higher standard of who we've come here to be.
So let me track with this, Dennis, because defining moments to me feel like big brouhahas that happen in life and, with arrows pointing and neon signs going, wow, that was a defining moment. And you see that after you've gone past that defining moment sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. Sometimes you're not even aware that you had a defining moment for weeks or maybe even years.
Or years. Hello, I'm raising my hand. That's happened to me.
But the point of the book is that you're not limited to one defining moment in your life, that as you grow and evolve, you can redefine yourself on a daily basis based on the new discoveries that you make about who you are at a deeper level.
So I really appreciate that you've said that, and I got to tell you, that makes me a little dizzy, because that means I got to be paying attention in my life.
Doggone it! Isn't that a bummer?
Oh yeah. Sometimes I just want to sleep.
That's my clarion call: is mindfulness. Mindfulness, and that's at the core of my teachings with all my mentoring clients, as we work on mindfulness, mindfulness is simply bringing your mind back into your body. You notice that your mind is, all the time, your thinking mind is out in front of you or oftentimes behind you.
Mm-hmm.
And mindfulness is a practice of calling that thinking mind back into the present moment and experiencing what is in the moment. And so when you're living mindfully, you're present with your body in the moment with what is, rather than your mind being out in front of you, thinking about what might or might not be tomorrow, or what was that shouldn't have been yesterday.
I tell you, that's a constant behaviorism in my life. Let me say it that way, I guess. Where I'm looping back to the past. I'm projecting into the future. I'm not in my car as I'm driving because I'm thinking of past or future stuff. And it's kind of scary to be driving a car.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, that's, when you're mindful, you take that state of mindfulness into whatever you're doing. And it makes whatever you're doing, gives you the possibility of having a peak experience in that moment, because you're totally present and experiencing the activity of being in your doing. It's kind of like incorporating your being, capital B, into your doing, which is that intersection where your horizontal self, where your deepest self lives, with the vertical self, the deepest part where you live, with the horizontal self, which is how we exist on the surface of life on the daily basis of doing. So we have to take a breath and bring our mind back into our body, where our doing and our being merges.
So Dennis, because you said the vertical and the horizontal, so can you riff on that a little bit more?
Sure.
Because that caught me when I was reading your book, the vertical.
Yeah, if you draw a horizontal line on a piece of paper, and you think about that as the left end of that line is the past, and the right end of that line is the future. And we live on the horizontal plane of life. I call it living on the surface of life, where we live at the beck and call of society. We're always busy doing. And the vertical line, if you were to draw a vertical line right through that horizontal line, and put a circle where the horizontal line and the vertical line intersect, that's where you want your mind to be, not in the future or the past, but in the present moment. And the way that you do that is by taking a deep breath and going within and making contact with that deeper part of yourself that doesn't define itself by what's going on the surface of life, and bring an awareness of that self back into the moment with you, and see how it can show up in what you're doing.
So, Dennis, I have a quote from your book that I think kind of speaks to this a bit. In your redefining moments, you said, living closer to the center of your being is the practice of a lifetime. Hello. While it is the road less traveled, there is a pathway for seekers that guides us there, a pathway lined with one defining moment after another if we learn how to mindfully connect to them in our daily lives. So that, to me, sounds like the access, of the vertical and the horizontal that you're describing right now.
And again, it's awareness. You can have a redefining moment. One of the greatest redefining moments I ever had in my life was the moment in the delivery room when the doctor handed my daughter to me and put her in my arms. I looked into her eyes, and it redefined everything for me. Who I was going to be, and who she was, and all the labels I had already put on her before she even arrived.
Wow. So that's what redefining is. Because to me, before I started to read your book, I was thinking redefining meant I got to redo. I got to undo and redo.
In some ways, you get to redo, because a lot of us, listen, from the day we're born, we start getting covered over with labels. From the moment we're born, the second we're born, the first label is physical, human being, then gender, and then ethnicity, and then religion, and name, and social security number, and then the labels. As we grow, we continue to get more and more labels put on us: tall, short, fat, skinny, smart, dumb, rich, poor, white, black, green, yellow, gay, straight, bi. And the labels just continue to get stuck on us. And pretty soon we are living so far away from that authentic being we were the moment we were born that we don't even know it's there. So redefining moments happen in a manner that allows us to peel away the labels sometimes and get back to that selfless place, or that place of the divine self we were the moment we were born, before the world got a hold of us.
So let's speak a little bit about that divine self, because you talk about it also as the center of our being.
Yeah.
And so really, what is that? Dennis?
Well, the original self is that aspect of who you were and are that aligns with essentially the oneness of life. I refer to it as the original self, and some other people might refer to it as infinite intelligence. Some might refer to it as God. It doesn't matter. Again, that's just another label that you refer to it as.
Right.
But we're each put here in this human condition, in this human experience, to be a finite point of expression for that original self.
That sounds like the axis again of the horizontal and the vertical meeting itself.
Right.
That finite point.
Right.
So then so one of the things you talk about in this book is you're talking about discerning what your who your true self is, who you were meant to be because you're here.
Well, I think we each come imbued with specific gifts and talents.
Okay.
And a lot of times we ignore those gifts and talents because the world tells us we need to do or be something specific in order to be worthy or to earn a living. And sometimes those gifts and talents go undiscovered, and we go to our graves with that song unsung, as Thoreau said.
Oh, how sad is that, too?
Yeah, well, it is sad. I mean, how many people went into careers that their parents wanted them to do or be, rather than what they were called from that place within to follow their bliss, as Campbell said.
Right.
To really do what they were put here to do.
You know, it's interesting, Dennis, because I came from a very supportive family, and so what it is I wanted to do, they were very supportive as long as I had a college education.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
well,
really supportive. But what I found is the thing that I thought I wanted to do, and I was supported in doing, wasn't necessarily the thing I was supposed to do, I guess, because it wasn't happening. You know, I was kept hitting my head against the dead end of a road, not realizing that I had hit the dead end.
Yeah. When we're doing what we're called to do, bliss is what Campbell referred to as when you follow your bliss, the doors open for you in unexpected ways that create opportunities for you to find a way to do and bring that gift to the world in a way that serves the world and you.
Okay, so how do we find what that is that we're here to do? How do we discern what's our true beingness?
You have to listen to your heart and not your head.
Oh, that's and that's easier said than done, ain't it?
Of course it is, because the head rules. But when we listen to our heart, and I don't mean in an airy-fairy way, but if you listen to the deepest core elements within you and you feel that yearning of what's calling you to bring to the world, and you got the courage to do it, the universe conspires for our good when we're living a life on purpose.
Mm-hmm. You know, and as you're speaking, I oftentimes when I am tapping into what it is I'm being called to do, I kind of feel like it's what the true heartstring is. You know, it's not so much a heartstring, at least for me. It's not so much like in a guitar, there's a heartstring and you're plucking the strings, but it feels like a string that's pulling out from my heart and leading me forward into what I'm supposed to be doing next.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't see what I'm supposed to be doing next.
And a lot of times you don't know. That's why I wrote the book, The Art of Uncertainty.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, coming to the edge of what you know and leaning over, trusting there's something within you that does know. And if you're willing to take the step into uncertainty, that which is within you that knows where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do knows how to get you there. And it's a tough gig because you got to really have faith.
Faith
I did
and
that.
trust.
I've changed my career life path 3 or 4 times in my adult life, and each of them is radically different careers. But it was each one led me to the door of the next one if I had the courage and the willingness to follow through with that.
The courage and the willingness. I got to tell a brief story. Yesterday, my boyfriend and I went down to the Hollywood Bowl, driving from Ventura County down to the Hollywood Bowl. I had in my mind the way I was going to go. I was going to go, the 101, blah. And traffic was showing up, unbelievable traffic. And he said, how about we go this other way out through, it was like And he said, it's going to take us less time. And I started having like a mini panic attack. And I thought, oh my God, I have got to surrender and trust that no matter what, we're going to get there. Because no matter what, we're going to get there. And I had to breathe and let go of what my plan was, of how I thought we were going to get there. Now, if I'm having a mini panic attack, and I'm sure there's people out there that go through this, if I'm having a mini panic attack of just how am I supposed to get to the Hollywood Bowl for an evening of enjoyment, how do I have the courage to follow a life something?
I guess that you learn by doing. Buddha said that our attachment to what is the cause of all suffering.
Oh my goodness, you said attachment.
There it is. Yeah. And see, your mind was already at the Hollywood Bowl.
That's
your body
right.
Your body was sitting in the car in good luck traffic in the 101, but your mind was separated from you, and it was already in the sitting in your seat at the Hollywood Bowl, and it caused you to suffer. But what if you could have recalled your mind and had it sit in your body and breathe and say, in this moment, I'm out of control. In this moment, this is the opportunity for me to be with what is and love it. Doesn't mean I have to like it.
But you said love it.
Yeah. Well, you can love what is without liking it.
How do you do that, Dennis?
By embracing the fact that it is what it is. Otherwise, it would be something else.
Okay, that sounds simple for you to say.
Well, I know.
But
I know.
Really, yeah, I agree with you, because certainly once I breathed and I was like, all right, so this is a new adventure, and we went a different way, and I saw things I hadn't seen before. It was really kind of cool. But the embracing the thing that we're afraid of and loving it.
The serendipitous opportunities that show up when you're willing to go with the diversion and see where it takes you. Life is a journey, and it's not about the destination. It's experiencing as we go. I've had by the way, I had the exact same experience with the Hollywood Bowl years ago. I got caught in traffic going down to the Hollywood Bowl one night, and we got there at about 15 minutes after the concert had started, and we could have gone in, but we decided, my wife and I said, let's just pass. We're this close to the beach. Let's just keep on going to the beach, and rather than go through the hassle. And so we ended up taking that lemonade or that lemon that was dealt to us and turning it into something sweeter by going to the beach and having a nice evening at the beach. Sometimes we have to let go of what we want in order for us to have what can be.
Okay, so is that redefining, taking the moment and just going, okay, now I'm going to go with a different game plan? Sure. Okay,
if you're willing.
Right. So there's trust, there's willingness. It sounds like there's some spicing up of courage in there.
There has to be courage.
Otherwise, we wouldn't do anything, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's where fear, fear comes in. We're so attached to loss of control. Loss of not getting to the concert, and we lost the value of the price we paid for the tickets. There's so many places where fear pops up, and we don't see it because it's very, very subtle sometimes. But it kind of permeates the essence of our being and takes over without our even being aware of it.
It seems kind of like a human condition that just happens to everybody.
It is.
I mean, I can't imagine that there's people that really just don't experience a loss of control and not have a reaction to it.
Well, but that's where true and authentic power comes from, is realizing, take a deep breath. Whoever's listening right now, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, realize you don't have any control over anything except that next breath. You don't have control over the driver in the next lane. You don't have control over the person sitting next to you in the theater. You don't have control over the airplanes flying overhead. You don't have control over anything. The grand illusion is that we think we have control over a lot. But so when we can live in a state of surrender, realizing that we are totally out of control, and enjoy the present moment and the gift it brings, you'll be amazed at how much more joyful life can be.
Yeah, I have actually lived that at moments, and it's a hell of a lot more fun.
Well, it's more exciting.
Yeah, it is that too. It is that too. So in your book, The Redefining Moments, you've got a list of 7 intrinsic qualities of the authentic self. Now, can people have heard this word authentic and authentic self a lot, but define it again for people in terms of how you view it.
Your authentic self is that part of you that is the microcosm of the macrocosm, if you will, of that original self, the universe, infinite intelligence, God, whatever you want to refer to it, when it personalized itself in you, that moment that you were created, that's your authentic self. And when you're living with an awareness of that presence, it alters how we interface with life.
So, I don't know that there's many of us that are really living authentic.
Well, authenticity shows up in our lives in a number of ways, and there's characteristics that come along with living authentically. And you look at people who lived authentic lives, and frankly, throughout history, society did away with a lot of people who really, truly wanted to live authentic lives, to be who they were. People like Jesus, Socrates, Harvey Milk. People who insisted on being who they were and living in their truth. Society found a way to do them in because the culture doesn't like it when people rally against and cut, as I refer to in the book, when we cut ourselves away from the herd consciousness.
Isn't that amazing? And then we find later that they're the ones that we create as heroes. Yep. We go, wow, I wish I had that kind of courage.
Yep. Like Martin Luther King.
Yeah. So one of the things you say in your book about this discerning your true self, which caught my attention, you were talking about how people can get rooted in their belief systems and believe that what other people believe and have told them is the truth. Yeah. And so I'd like to read this quote. One telltale sign of how deeply we are rooted in our beliefs, or not, can be found in our need to force them on other people. This is a perfect example of how too often we lethargically, I love this phrase, Dennis, we lethargically allow others to have free rent in our heads, and we mindlessly take on their beliefs as our own because we have not invested the time and energy to consider what it is we really do believe. That's a powerful statement.
Or we're just too lazy.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to let somebody else tell us how to live our lives or who we are.
Right. Let the other people vote for president. Let the other people, make the choices at work for me, and I'll just be the drone.
Well, look how many people live out of the, in the scriptures, the teacher Jesus referred to how the sins of the father are passed to the son. What that means is the belief systems of our parents gets passed to us, and we pass it to our children. And most of the time, we don't even challenge the beliefs that are handed down to us to see if they're true or not. Because they've been handed down to us by the sacred parents, or culturally, from generation to generation, certain ideals are passed down, or certain ideas are passed down that may or may not be true. But until we are willing to sit with them and do self-inquiry with them to see if they are true for us, we let them define who we are.
Right. So what you're talking about is sitting down with yourself individually. Although sometimes you need a group to kind of bounce ideas off to decide what you believe,
that
right?
can help. But if you're conscious, and see, here's that operative word, conscious. That means being conscious means being present and aware in the moment of what's going on in your thinking. If you're willing to observe your thoughts, and when a thought passes by you, and you oftentimes hear it articulated with the words you speak, if you're willing to be witness to those thoughts and words, and if something shows up that you find doesn't settle right with you, stop the thought and say, where did you come from? Who gave you authority to live in my mind? And that means being willing to go back and challenge that thought and the belief behind it that sponsored it.
And I love the phrase, again, harking back to that quote of allowing others to have free rent in your mind. I mean, that's like so true. It's such a great image for me because there's so many of us that have just given up our minds to whatever the latest phase or fad is, whatever the indoctrination has been?
Well, a lot of us give free rent in our minds to popular icons. I'm clearly not a conservative. I'm more of a liberal in the way I approach life. And it boggles my mind how people take Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh as the voice of God. I just don't understand it. That they take what they are told verbatim and believe that it's the truth without even challenging it.
To me, it's very vitriol baby food, if you will. They're not even chewing it; they're just swallowing it.
Right.
So, yeah. Yeah, and this is happening with not just what those people discuss, but it's also happening in the way businesses are being run now. Yep. They sell you, they are able to twist and turn and sell you a product that is not in your best interest, not for your highest good, not for your health and well-being, not even well-made sometimes.
And you know how they manage to do that? We live in a shame-based culture.
Ooh, yes, let's talk about that.
And shame, a lot of people don't really understand what shame is, but to give you an analogy, the difference between shame and guilt, to help you understand what shame is. Mm-hmm. Guilt is a feeling that you've made a mistake. Pretty much everybody can identify with some time when they've made a mistake and they feel guilty about it. Shame is a feeling or a belief that you are fundamentally a mistake.
And you're fundamentally broken.
You're fundamentally broken. And so when we live in a state of shame-based beliefs, we're going to look out to the world to define us and to make us feel okay. And the way that we do that is you watch these pharmaceutical commercials on TV or the media. Television exists for one purpose, and don't let anybody fool you to believe otherwise. Television exists to sell you stuff.
Right, not for entertainment, people.
No, that's we're addicted to the entertainment, but because we need a diversion. But television exists to sell us stuff, and because we're a shame-based society, whatever they're selling, we believe it'll fill the hole in the soul that we're feeling. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the new car or the latest beauty product or the Viagra or whatever it is, the latest pharmaceutical.
In my case, it's shoes.
There you go.
Yep.
So but we all know that none of those things will fill the hole in the soul. That's why the antidote to shame is learning how to, as corny as it sounds, to love yourself unconditionally, without anybody getting permission from anybody else to do so.
Dennis, I want to take a short break, and I want to come back and talk specifically about loving yourself unconditionally. I'm talking to Dennis Merritt Jones about his book, Your Redefining Moments. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with Living Your Inspired Life. Hi, this is Susan Burrell of Living Your Inspired Life, and we air every Sunday from 10 to 11 on KVTA. We are launching an Indiegogo campaign to crowdfund Living Your Inspired Life and Positive Talk Radio. So please go to livingyourinspiredlife.org, click on the Indiegogo campaign, and contribute to keeping Positive Talk Radio on KVTA Sunday mornings from 10 to 11.
The proceeding was a promotion for a paid program. Some guests and products featured in some shows may have paid a fee.
Welcome back to Living Your Inspired Life. I'm Susan Burrell, and I have the amazing honor and actual fun and joy to be having a discussion with author Dennis Merritt Jones. He's written several books. The one we've been discussing is Your Redefining Moments, and you can check out all that he does and all the other books at Dennis, DENNIS, Merritt, MERRITTJONES.com. Dennis Merritt Jones. And Dennis, what else do you want people to know before we delve back into our dance?
Well, I'd love to invite them to subscribe to my weekly Mindful Purpose e-message, which I send out on a weekly basis, my gift to them. There's all kinds of great free downloads on my website, too, if you go to the download page. And I have a column with the Huffington Post. You can access that through my website as well.
How often do you write for the Huffington Post?
Oh, usually once a week.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
I happen to like the Huffington Post, people. It's a good source of information. So prior to our break, Dennis, we were talking about this idea of shame and how the antidote is self-love. And it sounds like that your mindfulness weekly gifts that you're giving people would be one way to begin to develop a deeper sense of self and self-love and self-acceptance.
Yeah. Matter of fact, there's a download on my website for a mindful living ebook that you can download free, which will give you a lot of guidelines or tools to learn how to incorporate mindfulness in your daily life. And one of the, I can't emphasize this too much, one of the ways that we learn to redefine ourselves is by being able to stand witness to what's going on in our minds and our thoughts and our feelings by means of emotional awareness. And when things rise to the surface and present themselves to us that don't feel good, rather than pass them off or run to the refrigerator and numb it up or the alcohol cabinet, turn and challenge that thought or that feeling and look at the belief behind it. That's what mindfulness does. And if you track the displeasurable thoughts and feelings that you have back far enough, you'll discover that most of them come from a place of not loving ourselves or respecting ourselves enough.
Okay, so I got to tell you, I'm kind of squirming here in my chair, Dennis, when you talk about that, because there's one thing to go, okay, ouch, I stubbed my toe. Now, let me sit with that and go, hello, what is that? And there's another one when you're in that really deep, awful, snotty nose, sobbing, I hurt thing, to then become mindful of, okay, so what is it that's causing me my pain? Not the somebody outside of you that did something to you thing, but the thing within you that's causing you to have that deep emotional reaction.
Mm-hmm. You'll discover that it's almost always will come back to the fundamental belief around shame, which is I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not enough.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you just solved a whole bunch of things for me that have been occurring in my life this week.
But see, then you have to take that information and rather than settle for it, say, oh, I see. What's the truth then that would make me enough?
Wait, that sounds like an action item.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. Action is required in the curriculum of life if you want to change it.
Okay, so what do you do?
Well, if the belief is I'm not enough, what's the antithesis of that belief? I am enough.
Mm-hmm.
What would I base that criteria on? Well, number one, take a deep breath. Are you alive? Yep. Do you have any idea how valuable your life is?
Nope.
The gift. Well, think about it. The gift of life itself is the most precious gift in the universe, and it is priceless. It is a pearl of great price, but people take it for granted. When you start thinking about, am I enough? Well, I'm alive. That means that the universe, the Creator, however you want to look at it, must have thought enough of me to breathe the breath of life into me and put me on this planet for a purpose. That's pretty powerful.
Now, I know not several. I know a lot of people that tend to go, well, that feel that if the universe, creator, God, whatever you want to call it, thing put me on this planet for a purpose, that I have people that would say, well, that's kind of presumptuous,
okay,
kind of arrogant. Who am I to be this big honking thing on the planet?
True.
Which goes back to the self-worth or lack of.
Right.
Well, that's a vicious cycle, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. What's the difference between you and Mother Teresa?
I think a lot. I think a lot. Besides the fact she's willing to go to she was willing to be in India. And,
I guess any sacred, what we would refer to as put on a pedestal, somebody who truly lived an ideal that was wonderful and life-changing for many people. She was just as vulnerable to everything we are. It's just that she chose to put her power in a different place than we do. She lived so close to her source, her version of what her true authentic power was, that she was able to live a life of profound courage and selflessness that changed many lives. She had a physical body that was as vulnerable to disease and frail as yours or mine, but she chose to live in that body differently than we do. Why? Because she actualized the sense of who she was and the gift she brought and had the courage to live in it.
You know, the thing I think is very exciting these days are the people. There's more and more people that aren't necessarily having to come out big in their life and be on a pedestal and be a Mother Teresa. They just doing simple acts in their individual smaller lives that are affecting millions. And I'm thinking of like the when Egypt did the whole crowd Facebook change their culture and political system, and those were individuals. Nobody really stood out, but it was individuals that said, okay, this is what we want now. We are going to choose, not you.
That's that part of the collective whole, WHOLE, of the sacred self, if you will, or that original self that lives in humanity that is starting to stir. And as it's stirring, people are awakening culturally, universally, worldwide, to the awareness that they're not satisfied with being defined by others, whether it's a government or cultures, as to telling them who they are or what they can or can't do. That's what the Arab Spring was about.
Right.
That's what's going on all around this world. The gay rights movement, the civil rights movement. There's so many places where there's an energy of this original self moving culturally that is finding a way to the surface as a form of expression where people are beginning to say, no, that's not who I am. This is who I am, and I insist on being it.
I have another quote from your book, your redefining moments, and you said, while it may appear different in every culture, individuals are literally rising up and demanding that for which we are all inherently hardwired.
Right.
The freedom to authentically be who we each have come here to be heard and honored, for who we are. Inherent in every living thing lies the desire to be free and the power to make it so.
And that is becoming a clarion call for people in every culture. Just as an example, what Bruce Jenner brought to the world, while a lot of people don't care for how he did it and how he brought his discontent with who he was to the forefront to insist that the world support him in being who he knew he wanted to be and really was.
Mm-hmm.
That same energy is moving through many cultures right now, where people are insisting on being authentically who they know they are, rather than what the society is telling them they should be.
Right. And so I just have to do a juxtaposition here, because the way that he did it, she did it, it really didn't harm multitudes of people. There wasn't like a mass uprising or a shooting to say this is who I am. Mm-hmm. It was him just standing in his individual truth and trying to follow through as much as he could, and has, and his family, for the most part, seemingly supporting him in all the choices that he was moving towards.
Right.
And the juxtaposition for me is the shootings that just occurred in Charleston, where an individual had to go out and harm a bunch of people for the rest of the country to wake up and go, wait a minute, this is not okay. Yet again and again and again and again. Why do we have to keep experiencing this awfulness for everyone to go, you know what, now it's just time to stop it?
Because people are afraid to face change, and people are afraid to challenge authority. And as tragic, as horribly tragic as the shooting was in South Carolina, look at what has happened as a result of that, where now other states are taking the Confederate flags out of their government buildings. Their merchandisers such as Amazon and Walmart are taking any images of the Confederate flag out of their stock and removing it from their shelves, because the flag symbolizes racism and hate
and division.
And division, yeah. And as sad as that tragedy was, a nugget of something of meaning, of good, is coming out that is affecting millions of lives because of that. So these families of these victims can at some point find that sense of relief that their loss has been something that has affected the world in a positive way.
It certainly is stirring the pot towards change, as opposed to just staying stagnant in well, that's the way we've always done it. I have a quote by Robert Kennedy that something he said right after Martin Luther King was shot, and I just want to read that right now because it speaks to what we just said. What we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence or lawlessness, but love and wisdom and compassion towards one another, and a feeling of justice to those who still suffer within our country, whether they be white or whether they be black. Mm-hmm. Because that division that he spoke to and that we're speaking to, it's not just about the whites versus the blacks. The Civil War was about white versus white.
Right.
It was about North and South economies and who wants to keep their economy going in a way that really was self-serving as opposed to serving the highest good of everyone in the country.
Yep. Well, change is a universal principle. And we may have talked about this at one of our other conversations, but change is a universal principle. And Ernest Holmes, a guy who wrote the book called Science of the Mind, refers to this universal creative urge moving through all living things, which is to grow and evolve and push out, and that requires change. And he also referred to the universal imperative, which is grow or die. And if we don't grow as a culture, if we don't grow as a civilization, if we don't grow as a human race into a larger, bigger idea of who we can be, we will slowly die.
Or we could quickly. I feel like okay. Now, and this is my opinion, people. Nobody has to buy it. You don't have to. You don't have to swallow it like pablum. But I feel like we're on a precipice. And if we do not wake up, like you're talking about, Dennis, if we do not become mindful and really individually define what our individual belief systems are, what is true to my authentic self, if we don't do this collectively as a nation, it feels like we're heading towards a mass revolution, because that's what's happening. People are already, the whole thing that happened with Wall Street a few years ago, people were like, enough is enough is enough. And I think there's like this equalizing thing that's trying to happen of where the people in government or people in large corporations, people that are getting a lot of money. And I'm not against money. I'm not against getting money. And listen, I'm running an Indiegogo campaign. But there's this place of inequitable balance so all of this is also striving to balance us in some way. Mm-hmm. And sometimes what you're talking about, change or die, it's almost like, so what's really going to die isn't necessarily us physically,
no,
but it's our belief systems that have and we've talked about this on Living Your Inspired Life many times, because there's an old paradigm. I'm estimating is about 2,000, a little bit over 2,000 years old, that has currently resolved itself, and there's closure on it. And so what's happened is there's this huge vacuum that I choose to call the new paradigm, that we get to create and invent what's going to happen now. And how we used to operate, you can't bring that into the new paradigm because it doesn't work. It just doesn't work anymore.
That means you have to step into the field of the unknown and create something new. If you think you can create something new from within the field of what you already know, you're mistaken, because it'll just be another version of what you know. You have to step into total unknown territory and draw from the source of that unknowingness to know something new.
Okay, did you hear what I said earlier, Dennis, about not knowing how to get to the Hollywood Bowl and how it freaked me out? I totally agree with you. It's scary, people. It's scary to stand in that unknown space and go, okay, now what? And recognize that the tools we used before, that shovel, that hoe, that, rake, well, that doesn't work anymore either. We have to come up with new tools.
And a lot of us are too fearful to move into that field of the unknown, because all fear, Susan, at some level is a concern of loss of something. Mm-hmm. Think about it. Every fear we have is attached to a concern of loss. And if you really think about it, every fear we have is attached to, therefore, a fear of death.
Oh, yeah.
The death, it could be not just a physical death, but the death of a lifestyle, the death of a bank account, the death of a relationship, the death of a career, a reputation. But fear wraps its tentacles around us in so many unobvious ways that until we wake up and be mindful that it has, we let it run us.
Okay, so Dennis, let me ask you a question. When I have those moments of like feeling really sorry for myself, or feeling like somebody's hurt me, or I want to blame somebody for doing me wrong, is that part of like an indicator that I'm in that place of fear?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
And again, let's not demonize fear. Fear is not a bad thing. Okay. Without fear, most of us wouldn't have made it through childhood. Fear is a powerful ally if we use it consciously and mindfully and identify it, and rather be proactive with it rather than reactive to it.
But it seems to me the world is currently, and lots of news stations are all about amping up the fear to get you to go do the thing I want you to do, or buy the thing I want you to buy.
That's exactly right. It's the fear of loss of control, loss of power. You bet.
Okay.
So what you have to do is stop running from your fear. And remember the old saying, fear, the acronym for fear, false evidence appearing real?
Mm-hmm.
There's another one I love. It's forget everything and run, which is what we often do when fear pops up. We turn and spin our heels and run the other way.
Right.
We run to the refrigerator, the medicine cabinet, the pharmacy, the alcohol liquor cabinet, the supermarket. There's a lot of barges departing down the river of denial, but they all come back. And when we come back from our trips, fear is right there on the dock waiting for us.
Just waiting, right? It doesn't go anywhere.
No, it's waiting for us. So sooner or later we have to learn to, and they say in the East, you dance with your demons. You, rather than run from it, you embrace it. You call it in close, and you whisper in its ear, "Oh, fear, you're here for a reason. Teach me. Tell me what I need to know about you, so I can then mindfully transcend you."
Sounds like controlling too.
Yeah.
But that's in a positive, forward motion.
Yeah.
Self-discovery way. So let me ask you this, Dennis. Because I think we live in a nation that's full of fear right now. Fear of your neighbor, fear of the person driving the car next to you, fear of what the government's doing to you, or the surveillance systems are doing to you, or your satellite towers doing to you. Mm-hmm. So how I'm trying to get back to the microcosm. And how does the individual, if I sit down and do my work around fear, right, and I get to a place where I can be okay with the loss of control, letting go of attachment to the thing that was causing me the pain and the anguish and the fear, and I do that individually, how does that help anybody, really? How does that help the nation? How does that help the world?
Well, you know what? That's been the vision of every visionary from the get of civilization, that you change the world by changing minds one at a time. And it's having the courage and the willingness to stay with the action long enough. And I mean, Martin Luther King, in his lifetime, he didn't see his vision come to fruition, but look at it today because of what he was doing. And so you may or may not see what it is that you want to see happen in the world happen in our lifetime, but you cannot ever doubt that you're contributing. Just the element of your own consciousness to the collective consciousness makes it more likely.
So even again, this goes back to the whole Mother Teresa conversation we had a little bit earlier on Living Your Inspired Life. So even the idea that I don't have to be the big dog standing on the pulpit or the soapbox or the White House. I can, in my own current individual life, by becoming mindful and letting go of my fear and accepting and loving myself more, I can make a difference in the world like that.
You can do that just by standing in the line at the bank.
And
mindfully being aware enough that the person in front of you or back you is having a bad day, and maybe by being present enough to witness that and then to offer a word of encouragement, you could change their life. That's a small thing. That's not inventing or coming up with a cure for a major disease, but it's changing a life. In that moment, you're adding something positive to somebody else's life. That's what mindful living does, is it brings you into the moment where you can consciously participate in a proactive way in the gift you bring of yourself to others.
So we just have a couple more minutes, Dennis. I want to just loop this back to the 7 qualities of the intrinsic self, because I just want to say these out loud for people to hear, because it kind of speaks to what you just said of being aware and mindful of the people around you, and that's how you participate in changing the world. And so you've got these qualities are wholeness, reverence, fearlessness, integrity, humility, equanimity, and love.
Right. When you're living from your authentic self, those qualities will show up in your daily life.
You'll be more fearless.
Yep.
Okay. And let's speak a little bit about the equanimity.
Mm-hmm. Equanimity is being mindful enough and standing with what is to be mindful enough to whether you're being pulled toward it or repelled against it. It's just being mindful of whether you're judging something as being favorable or unfavorable, and finding your balance between the two. Being conscious of where you stand in any given moment regarding your opinion of something or someone.
That takes a lot of work.
Sure does.
Because I got to tell you, I'm like a ping pong ball.
Yeah.
Back and forth.
But it's a way of life, Susan. Mindfulness is not just a practice; it's a way of life. But once you master it, and that's why I throughout all of my books, The Art of Being, The Art of Uncertainty, and Your Redefined Moments, mindfulness is there's a mindfulness practice at the end of each chapter for that reason, because it gives you tools to bring these ideas into your life mindfully every day.
So this is like going to the gym. You want to look better and feel better, you got to show up.
Yep.
So the same thing, you want to feel better and have a life of meaning for yourself and make a difference in the world, you got to show up.
Yep. At the end of the day, when we knock on heaven's door, the 2 questions we're going to be asked is did you love well, and is the world a better place today than it was when you got there because you were there? And if you can answer yes to those questions, you know you've lived a purposeful and full life.
I love it. We've been talking to Dennis Merritt Jones, and the website is Dennis, Dennis, Merritt, RRITT Jones.com, and you can find out more about what he does and buy some of these books. And your redefining moments, people, I've really enjoyed it, Dennis. Thank you for that.
Thanks. It's also on audio and ebook as well.
Yay, I love it. So again, I'm just going to remind people, Indiegogo for Living Your Inspired Life closes Monday at midnight. That's tomorrow at midnight. Go to livingyourinspiredlife.org and check out what we do. And if you feel led, please contribute so that Positive Talk Radio can stay on the airwaves, not just in Ventura County, but on the web and moving out through the world, because that's what we're called to do here at Living Your Inspired Life. So I'm just going to end with, and so it is, namaste.